My wife divorced me, took everything, and turned the kids against me. Later, her lover ruined her. Part 2. Hello Reddit I, plus here. After hanging up the phone, I sat there in silence, staring out the window of my modest but comfortable home. The house was nothing extravagant, but it was mine, paid for by my own hard work and free of the toxicity that had plagued my previous life. I should have felt relieved after turning Sarah down, and in some ways I did. But deep down, there was a nagging ache, a lingering sadness that wasn't easy to shake. The kids. Emma and Liam weren't innocent in all this, not entirely. They'd said things that cut me to my core, and for years, they chose to believe the worst about me. But they were still my children. The same ones I used to read bedtime stories to. The ones whose scraped knees I'd bandaged and whose laughter had once filled my life with joy. As much as I wanted to protect myself, I couldn't stop wondering if I was doing the right thing by shutting them out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed Sarah's words in my head. They miss you. They realize now that I was wrong to turn them against you. Was that true? Or was it another manipulation? And even if it was genuine, could I trust that they wouldn't hurt me again? The next morning, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. There's a park near my house where I go when life feels heavy. It's quiet, with a small pond surrounded by willow trees, and it's always been a place where I can think. As I sat on a bench, watching the ducks glide across the water, I thought about the man I'd become. I wasn't the same person Sarah had left. Back then, I'd let people take advantage of me, always trying to please everyone else at the expense of my own happiness. The divorce had been a brutal wake-up call, but it forced me to grow, to stand up for myself, and to prioritize my well-being. Letting Sarah back into my life, even for the sake of the kids, felt like a step backward, like reopening a wound that had finally started to heal. But the kids, they were different. At least, I hoped they were. A week later, I made a decision. I wouldn't reconcile with Sarah, there was no question about that, but I'd give Emma and Liam a chance to explain themselves. I sent them a text. If you want to talk, I'm open to meeting. Just the two of you. No mom. It didn't take long for them to respond. They agreed to meet me at a diner not far from where I lived, a quiet little spot where the coffee was always fresh, and the waitresses called you Hon. I arrived early, nerves twisting in my stomach as I waited. When they walked in, I was struck by how much they'd changed. Emma was now a young woman, her once childish features replaced by a maturity I hadn't seen before. Liam had grown taller, broader, and his shy smile reminded me of when he was little. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Emma broke the silence. Dad, I'm sorry. Her voice cracked, and I saw tears welling up in her eyes. We were wrong to believe Mom. She made you out to be this horrible person, and we didn't question it. I don't even know why we did. Maybe it was easier to blame you than to see the truth about her. Liam nodded. I missed you, he said simply, his voice barely above a whisper. Their words hit me harder than I expected. Part of me wanted to hold on to the anger, to remind them of the years they'd ignored me. But as I looked at them, I saw the same vulnerability they'd had as kids, the same need for love and forgiveness. We talked for hours that day. They told me about the struggles they'd faced living with Sarah and Mark, how they'd started to see through her lies as they got older. They admitted they were scared to reach out sooner, afraid I wouldn't want anything to do with them. I told them the truth, that I'd been hurt deeply, but that I'd always loved them. Rebuilding our relationship wouldn't be easy, and I told them as much. Trust takes time, and I needed to see that they were serious about wanting me in their lives. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope, a chance to reconnect with the people who mattered most. As for Sarah, she's still out there, trying to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. I hear things through the grapevine, how she's struggling to find steady work, how she's burned bridges with most of her friends. Part of me feels sorry for her, but I know better than to let her back in. Life isn't perfect, and it never will be, but I'm at peace now, focusing on what truly matters. I've got a second chance with Emma and Liam, and I'm determined to make the most of it. Sometimes the road to healing is messy and painful, but it's worth it. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's moving on and finding happiness on your own terms.